Okay, so let's now talk about what a good meeting agenda looks like. Now, there are a bazillion books out there on how to run meetings and meeting agendas and stuff. And this is what we've cobbled together out of thousands of clients working through what this meeting structure is. It's not right, it's what we have found that works best. Now, as a quick refresher, we have really two types of meetings. We have quarterly meetings, which are working on the business, and weekly, daily, monthly meetings, which are working in the business. So I'm going to first focus on the in the business meetings. So the standard meeting template for in the business looks like this. Basically 5 phases. We level set and understand what's going on, identify the barriers to getting work done, solve problems, escalate where we need to, close the meeting. In this phase, our problem solving has a bit of a cycle to it. So based on the number of problems, I'll go through that problem solving system. Now, I'm going to quickly go through the overall meeting framework and then loop back to each step. So level setting had 3 phases: view from the top, view from the bottom, follow-ups. So we get the multi-dimensional view and we make sure we follow up on last week's action items. Then we identify where the gaps might be that we need to deal with in this meeting, and then we problem solve. For each problem, we discover, discuss, and decide using subject matter experts. Now, those that we can't resolve, we have to escalate for a different team or different time. And then finally, we need to close the meeting. That's the overall framework. Let's drill into this in a bit of detail. First, if we take a look at the view from the top and view from the bottom. So this is the leader of that area. If it's a department, it's the department manager. If it's a team, it's the team lead, and so forth. And the other views are the rest of the people in the room. So if it's a department, it might be the team lead. If it's a team, it might be the lead hands, and so forth. And I want you to answer 3 questions. What? So what? Now what? What is what happened? Now, don't just look at the OKRs and the performance, but what's the underlying thing that caused that performance? So what? What happens if this performance continues for the next 6 weeks, 6 months? And then now what? What are the actions that you recommend that we take? And this is a wonderfully simple way of helping people understand overall what's occurring without drilling into a huge amount of detail. But it's important that you're not discussing the key result, you're discussing the underpinning things that made that happen. Then, of course, we're going to review what we agreed to in the last week's meetings. This is really important because what's that expression? After all is said and done, more is said than is done. We need to make sure that we follow up. How often have you gone into a meeting where you find that you're re-deciding what you agreed to in the last meeting? The next step is to identify what issues were not resolved from that, what, so what, now what conversation that we just had. So you may find that when you go through the view from the top, view from the bottom, that everything's taken care of, time to call the meeting, go home. But in some cases, there are a list of things that we still need to deal with, many of which you might actually know before the meeting. So we need to list those out. Then the discover, discuss, decide cycle. Now, for the monthly meetings or big meetings, you might be inviting in subject matter experts. And if you've done the first part right and we've nailed exactly what timing that's supposed to be, we can say to the SME, come in at 10:20 in the morning, because that's when we're going to be addressing your topic, and we're going to need you from 10:20 to 10:40. Well, that makes the subject matter expert's time much more effective. They're not wasting time in your meeting, and keeps you on schedule, of course, while making sure you have the right people in the room to have that conversation. But it does mean you have to stick to the allotted time. Remember, we have the timekeeper. We are agreed what those things are. Let's stay on schedule. And if it takes longer than we expected, it means the issue is different than we thought it was, and we probably need different skill sets and different time available. From there, we're obviously going to surface what those big issues are and escalate those that we can't solve. And then, of course, the closing is really important. We need to review the agreements in the room, make sure that everyone is 100% committed to it. And then you might want to score the meeting. I always think it's good to give the meeting a score from 1 to 10 so that you can continuously improve. Now, for each meeting, remember in the business meetings could be daily, weekly, or monthly. A daily meeting might be, we have a minute for the overview, 3 minutes for the roundtable discussion, 1 minute for follow-ups, and so on. So the total meeting is only 20 minutes. But if we go to the weekly meeting, Again, it's the same format. We're just allocating more time for each topic. So in this example, we've agreed that we're going to deal with any issues that we can solve inside of 5 minutes. Now, because you have the OKRs in advance, what you might be doing is going, based on this week's meeting, these are the 10 issues we need, therefore we need 50 minutes. Next week it might be we've got 4 issues, therefore we need 40 minutes. So this allows you to plan things in advance so that the team doesn't waste time in a meeting that isn't necessary, nor expects this meeting to be shorter than it is because it was short last week, and so forth. The monthly meeting, guess what? Same format, but we're going to allocate even more time. So in this example, maybe I allocate 30 minutes per meeting. Now, that's the regular scheduled meetings. You may also have emergency meetings or special meetings on particular topics. In other words, you could identify an issue, say in the weekly meeting, that needs to get escalated because it needs a cross-functional team or something like that. So we need to have a fourth type, which is that cross-functional meeting. So a flowchart of that would look a bit like this. So think of the team. The team is going to have, let's say, a daily meeting, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And at the end of the week, they're going to have a team weekly meeting. Now, at each of those meetings, they may in fact end up identifying an issue that they can resolve in that daily meeting. So we solve in the huddle, done. There might be other issues that we have that we need to punt to the weekly meeting. So it shows up, we either try to solve it and find it's too big for us, or even as soon as it appears, it immediately gets punted. A third scenario is we have a meeting in which we understand that we actually need a cross-functional team to solve it. So we need to have that cross-functional team created to go deal with that issue. Now, the cross-functional team and the weekly meeting all culminate in departmental weekly meetings. So this would be the team, a small group. This would be the department manager and their direct reports. And so what might happen is we may also bump into an issue that needs to get punted directly to the departmental meeting. So let's say it has to do with 3 different regions. I don't have access to those in the team meeting. I got to wait till the department weekly meeting to get that dealt with. Likewise, we might have issues that pop up in the weekly meeting that also have to get escalated to the department meeting. So you can see what's important here. What we're doing is we're shifting and escalating issues in order to have the right people at the table so we can effectively solve them. The important thing is that this is a weekly drumbeat, so a problem never rests for more than 7 days. Now, there's one level, of course, above There's one level, of course, that's above the department, and that is the overall leadership team. So that leadership team also has a weekly meeting. They have the same agenda, working on the same sorts of issues, but in this case, they're issues that they've self-discovered or are escalated from the cross-functional team or are escalated from the department team. So again, this escalation process makes sure that we have the right people at the table making the right decisions. There's a second type of meeting, the working on the business meeting. Those are typically quarterly, but they could happen anytime based on major events. And they're different. In fact, it's not really one meeting, it's 3 or 4 meetings. So we have the top down where we set the strategy, and that's basically taking the strategy map and seeing what changes we need to make. Weightings, objectives, key results. Then that gets cascaded down to the department. And so at the department level, they kind of have to respond to the corporate level objectives and say, based on the change in corporate strategy, this is what we'll do differently. And then there's a second part, if you've got teams, where the teams take the departmental one and cascade it down to them. This is really useful in cases where you've got multiple regions or multiple product groups or multiple plants, so that we make sure that we get down to the operational level to understand what's happening. And then most importantly is the feedback loop. We need a way to sort of recontract so that if we can't achieve those goals, leadership knows about it at the beginning of the quarter, not at the end. So that's the structure. The meetings basically follow the same format where, for example, in the strategy setting meeting, the executive team, they're going to review the existing performance, which is taking a look at the OKRs, typically seen from the top down. Then we look at options for how we might go forward. We discuss what the possible directions are that we might go. We agree on what direction we're taking. And again, that's based on the decision-making criteria we agreed to in advance. And then we decide specifically what the changes are to the O's and the KRs. So that by the time we're done, we have that new North Star. Then the next step down, each department team basically repeats the same process. Understand what the new strategy is, figure out what our options are, set new OKRs. And that gets repeated even down to at the team level. And then it gets bottom-up recontracting, which means the executive takes a look across all of the responses by the different teams and departments and make sure that they can cumulatively achieve the strategy the leadership team outlined. If they can't, they need to adjust the strategy and take it through the process again. So that immediate feedback loop is a better assurance that we can achieve the strategy going forward. So again, the process that we're describing here is one where the leadership sets the strategy from the top down. We get the chance to respond to it in what we can do with the resources we've been given. And then we have the feedback loop to see whether we can actually achieve that success overall or not. So hopefully this gives you a good outline of what those meetings look like. And if you have any more questions, feel free to either follow these links for other YouTubes or reach out directly to us. Thanks for your time.